When I was a sophomore in college, a friend and I hiked up the side of a mountain, sat down for lunch, and read to each other from the dialogues of Socrates. The old philosopher was put on trial for either the most subversive crime ever or the greatest civic gift possible, depending on how you see it. Socrates was accused of being a doer of evil who corrupts the youth. Actually, his crime was seeking out Athenian citizens who were seen to be wise, and through public debate, showing them they were not wise. The young people loved him. The elders sentenced him to death. Phaedo describes the scene in the prison cell as Socrates drinks the poison, lies down, and waits to die. He closes the dialogue by saying, "Such was the end, Echecrates, of our friend, concerning whom I may truly say that of all the men of his time whom I have known, he was the wisest and justest and best." I read those lines aloud and fell silent, electrified. From that moment, I was consumed by a desire to reach the endpoint of moral development, by whatever name you want to call it. I decided to major in philosophy. I took courses in religion. I read books on Gandhi. I started to meditate. I did 10-day retreats. I visited Zen temples in Japan. I went to a hermitage in Sri Lanka. I began a doctorate in human development. The search consumed me. When I was reading or meditating, time disappeared. I hadn't eaten, but I wasn't hungry. I hadn't slept, but I wasn't tired. But the most important thing that I see, looking back nearly 50 years, is not that I found a passion, but that I made it into an identity. My interest was genuine, but I used it to try to be better than others. And there was an unconscious social calculation for me in choosing the self-image of a spiritual person. I'm very competitive, and I began to see people my age becoming successful. They were running for office, starting businesses, performing in symphonies, and I wasn't. So I took refuge in spirituality. This allowed me to say to the people living in my head, sure, you're a Rhodes Scholar Olympian with a book on the New York Times bestseller list, but I'm a spiritual person who's transcended competition, so I win. And my spiritual boasts were not easy to test. It's not like I was saying, I'm the best left-handed bowler in Indiana. I made it hard for others to hold me accountable. Of course, I wasn't a saint. This was obvious to everyone, but I was going to be a saint, though this wasn't obvious to anyone. I was on my way, which means I had one more element in my self-image that I had to cling to desperately. I'm getting better. Or another version of the same conceit, what I'm doing is working. Or, even worse, I've figured everything out. My spiritual self-image wasn't the only identity that was precious to me. From early childhood, I started trying on identities for the buzz they gave me, and I held on to the ones that worked. Good reader, gifted writer, strong chess player. At some regrettable point, I took on the identity of being super reliable. It's not that I was those things, but that I got high if others saw me that way, and I got hurt if they didn't. All these idealized images of myself, from meditator to writer to totally reliable, flow together into a story I tell others about myself and hope they tell back to me. My story is just my self-image in motion, my fantasy of how it all works out for me. And it's surprising to me how people and events can still affect my mood by affirming or challenging my story and the beliefs that make it up. Without ever planning it or consciously choosing it, I tied my happiness to a story of who I am. If someone contradicts my story, I get angry. If someone honors and affirms my story, I respond with the false grace of an addict who just got a fix. I believe that most of our struggles for happiness can be seen inside this frame, which for this book, I'm going to call the self-image model of happiness. This is the implicit model of most self-improvement literature. You achieve happiness by deciding who you want to be and becoming that.